If you were to look up the definition of perfection in the dictionary, it would state lacking all faults or defects or satisfying all requirements. Now in December of 2013, I was 26 years old, 9 months pregnant, happily married, and awaiting the birth of my first son. My parents were going to be grandparents for the first time. My siblings were going to be aunts and uncles for the first time. Everyone was so excited, so thrilled. You could say at that moment, my life was pretty perfect. But this story isn't about me. It's about my sister Madison. Now, Madison is the third child in our family of 5 kids, so she's directly in the middle. And she's kind of your typical middle child. She didn't require a lot from my parents. She wasn't really needy. She kind of stayed to herself, was pretty introverted and quiet. She loved to go outside and explore, ride her bike and search for bugs, play in the dirt. She wasn't really the kind of girl that was going to play dress up a lot or play with Barbies. And she was just easy. The only thing that she really required from my parents was she liked being around them. If my mom would leave the room, she quickly followed after her. She liked to be able to see her at all times. And she really gave the term separation anxiety a whole new meaning. So when Madison was 5 years old, in our town, you're allowed to start playing rec sports. And she decided that she wanted to try soccer. So my parents signed her up, and now no 5-year-olds are actually good at soccer. You know, they kind of just group together and run after the ball. And Madison was no different, and she was happy to do that, happy to go run after it, happy to play, as long as one of my parents was holding her hand. So there's my dad holding her hand, you know, running around the soccer field with her. But after a few years, she kind of broke out of her shell, and she started to realize that not only was she enjoying soccer, she was actually really good at it too. So she joined about 3 teams, rec, travel, and then by the time she got to high school, she decided she wanted to play soccer at high school as well. And I think it really broke her out of her shell. She became best friends with her teammates. She was able to make these lifelong friends, and it made her gave her a little bit more confidence. You know, she wasn't this introverted middle child, another one of those kids from that family. She started to make a name for herself. So in high school, she was varsity girls captain of the soccer team. She was named Athlete of the Week of the Bergen Record. She was constantly on covers of newspapers, articles written about her, and I think it was really her time to shine. She was funny, she was silly, she was kind, she was friends with everybody, and she really made a name for herself. So when the University of Pennsylvania came calling and asked her to come to their school, she was thrilled. The Ivy League, this was it, this was my big break, this was what I've been working my whole life for. That's what she was telling everyone. But there was a little bit of a catch. They didn't want her to come to the University of Pennsylvania to play soccer. They wanted her to come to run track. And track was just something that Madison had started in high school to stay in shape for soccer in the off season. But she ended up being really good at it. She was really naturally athletic. So she picked it up pretty quickly and started winning awards for that too. So while she was a little apprehensive to go to a college, an Ivy League college, and run track for them, she thought, you don't say no to the Ivy Leagues. And so, in the fall of 2013, my sister packed up and went to Philadelphia. And she started her track at the Ivy League schools. And she was so excited. She was constantly telling everyone, this is what I worked so hard for. I can't wait to get there. I can't wait to meet my teammates and see the locker room, see the track, meet my roommate, see the dorms, meet my professors. She was thrilled. Anyone who used to come home and say that they didn't like college, Madison was confused. What's not to like about college? So when she got there and things started to go downhill pretty quickly for her, she was shocked. We all were. None of us ever thought that Madison would have a problem at college. But we found out that she was starting to lie to her coaches so she could stay home, not go to practice, or lie to her coaches so she could come home. And pretty quickly, we realized that she didn't really love college. It wasn't all that it was cracked up to be for her. She wasn't happy. She definitely wasn't thriving. You see, Madison's issue was she was a perfectionist. She strived for perfection in every aspect of her life. And in high school, that was pretty attainable. You know, she was on the cover of newspapers. She was getting A's in every class, 4.0 GPA, doing everything she could to succeed, friends with everybody, beautiful, popular. It wasn't that hard in high school. But at an Ivy League college, at UPenn, she wasn't perfect. She wasn't even looked at as perfect. She was one of many. And the problem with that is perfection is not always attainable. She couldn't always achieve that in college. You know, she would run these races and she'd come in third, and all of us would say, "You did such a good job, you got third place, that's amazing." But to her, it wasn't enough. And so she was struggling, she was lying, she was coming home on the weekends, and she was also constantly looking at social media. And social media is one of the worst things that you can do. Because as a perfectionist, you might sit there and think, oh, perfection, striving for perfection is amazing. What's so wrong about that? Well, studies show that if you strive for perfection, or perfectionists, it can cause anxiety, depression, and even suicidal thoughts in extreme cases. So then when she was adding social media, especially Instagram, to the mix, it was also just causing more problems. Now, empathy is one of the solutions to anxiety and depression. Social media is basically the opposite of empathy. It's just all about comparison and judgment. And Madison was logging on at night hoping to see that, you know, maybe my friends from high school, or even my college friends, or even my teammates, maybe they're struggling a little bit too. But she wasn't seeing that. Nobody really puts the truth on social media. It's all kind of smoke and mirrors. So all she was seeing was her friends having this great time at college, going to parties, landing great internships, having so much fun, making all these new friends. And it just left her feeling more alone, more isolated, like she wasn't perfect. So by the time she came home for Thanksgiving break, my family and I really noticed a change in her. She had lost a ton of weight. She wasn't laughing anymore. She wasn't smiling anymore. She wasn't the happy Madison that we knew anymore. And so we started her in a pretty intense therapy at home. So she went a few times over Thanksgiving break, and by Christmas break, we had her in a pretty regular schedule with it. So by the end of Christmas break, when it was time to go back for spring semester, we all kind of felt pretty good about her going back. Like this was going to be her new, fresh start. And my dad drove her down. She even wanted to go back a few days early to watch her friend play basketball for the Princeton team. So he dropped her off, he had dinner with her, he even stayed a little after dinner to make sure that she was doing okay. You know, you're gonna meet your new therapist in a few weeks at school, you got those appointments made, and she assured him that she was good. She had her appointments made, she was feeling good, and we all felt, including Madison, that this was gonna be her fresh new start, spring semester. So my dad left and went home, and about 15 days later, on January 17th, 2014, just 17 days after I gave birth to my first son, we got a call that Madison had died. And we were in a state of shock. We couldn't have understood what happened. And then when we found out that it was suicide, that she had taken her own life and done this to herself, we were even more blown away. You see, this Ivy League college, Madison couldn't be perfect anymore. She couldn't obtain that perfectionism that she had in high school. And if her life couldn't be perfect anymore, she didn't think it was worth living anymore. And you know, it reminds me a lot of this Bible story out of the Gospel of Luke. And I don't think that you have to be a Christian to really take something out of it. You see, in the story, there's these two sisters, Mary and Martha. And they invite Jesus and his disciples into their house, and they're on this long journey. They say, come over, rest, we'll make you a meal, you guys can have a nice rest on your journey. And they come in, and Martha's getting the house ready, making the meal, cleaning everything, making sure that everything looks perfect. And where's Mary? Sitting at Jesus' feet. That's all. And Martha's starting to get really annoyed. Like, I'm doing all the work here, I'm making sure that dinner's ready, I'm making sure that everything looks perfect, and what are you doing? And she actually gets so annoyed eventually at her sister that she says to Jesus, she's not helping me at all. Tell her to get up and help me. And Jesus' response is, Martha, Martha, you have chosen to do so many things to make everything look perfect. Your sister Mary has chosen one thing, and it is the right choice. And I think that so many of us can relate to Martha, though, in this story. How many of us want to make sure the house looks perfect? We look perfect. Our Instagram feed looks perfect. Enough filters, enough smoke and mirrors. But, Jesus had the right answer there. If you're just constantly striving for perfection, you're never going to get it. Because what does that do? It just makes you strive for the next thing to be perfect. You're never going to achieve that goal. Perfect people are never happy because once one thing ends, it's on to the next thing. How can I achieve that next goal? How can I make myself better? How can I get to be perfect? And that's where Madison was. I think college was really the end to Madison's journey because she noticed that she couldn't obtain that perfectionism anymore. She couldn't do it anymore. And if she couldn't do it, she didn't want to live anymore. So I challenge you guys to ask yourself, the next time you find yourself aiming for perfection, striving to be perfect, is it really worth it? Thank you.